Hi guys, welcome back to Have Kayaking. Today we're going to talk about one of the most exciting things that you can put on your fishing kayak, and that would be a fish finder. Now there's a lot of options out there and the sky's the limit. Whatever your price tag is, there's side imaging and all kinds of maps and things you can add to fish finders. Some people have multiple fish finders, different sizes of display. But what you want to think about when you first get your kayak and you're looking for fish finders is something that is going to fit your type of fishing. And that includes a number of things. So let's get right into that. Where you put the fish finder, you can put it up in front of you perhaps. You can mount it to the H-track. There's a lot of different balls and arms that you can use to put that exactly where you want to, but some things to consider. Of course, I'm out on Lake Michigan fishing for big trout and salmon. What I wanted to make sure is I didn't have something that was going to make netting a fish more difficult, which means not having some big arm lifting up that display where it might interfere with me fighting the fish or, more importantly, netting a fish. So going with something that could keep the mount right up against the H-track is what I decided on. There's a couple other reasons. I thought if I did flip over the kayak, having something small like this would make it easier to get the kayak turned upright if it flipped all the way. And then of course getting into the kayak, not having arms sticking out that might make that more difficult. So what we have here is once you decide how you're going to mount it to the H-track, if that's where you're going, you're going to have to drill a couple holes. You've got two cables coming from any fish finder. One of these cables is going off to the battery, which we'll show you in a minute, and the other one's going to the transducer. Now, this is the Passport 12. They have a scupper hole right above a pocket made for putting your transducer, which is awesome. My fish finder itself came with this little bracket here. And so what you do is you drill your two holes. And in my case, I also got the little net bag. Kind of hides everything. When I'm done with fishing, I just loosen up my brackets, turn off my fish finder, and take those two cables out. And tuck them inside the map net. The cables, of course, once I've got the larger rectangular hatch here that I've added, certainly makes putting the fish finder together easier because you have more access. But I've got the transducer cable tucked away and the power cable running to the back here. Here's a closer look of tucking the cables in. And I just went to the hardware store and bought some 1/4-inch grommets. Did the same back here where I put the circle hatch. Your new kayak won't come with that, but that way you can use it as a bucket, store a few things. And I went this year with the Naqua battery. It's lightweight, it's really powerful. It has two little arrows that make it easy to see when it's dark and you're trying to put your gear together. Lines up everything nice. That works pretty well. All right, just to show you what the transducer hatch looks like, I've got my transducer mounted in there. It lets water in and out. You'll notice it picks up some sand too once in a while. You want to wash that off. But these two screws hold this down. Hobie does come with some different transducer covers to match certain transducers. So that's it for the 12. We're going to pull down the 10.5. That one was a little more difficult because it doesn't have the transducer box, but hopefully those help you if you're putting one on the Passport 12. Let's move on to the 10.5. All right, this is the Passport 10.5, the 2019 model, and for that I was able to get a fish finder on it through a little bit of ingenuity. I wasn't sure of my battery options, so I opted putting a standard motorcycle battery in a Plano box like the 12.0, we went ahead and drilled a couple holes once I figured out where I wanted to have my fish finder mounted. And ran the cables through some 1/4 inch size grommets, drilled holes that would fit those grommets in the cable, carefully ran that through the kayak, and then the interesting part. So we have the motorcycle battery hooked up to a Plano box, attached a couple gator clips, and that way I'm able to connect to my power source. And then I put some foam in here so it wouldn't slide around. Everything's nice and tight. Threw another grommet on there on the cover. And there, I'm almost ready to go. Now, where am I going to put this? Let's take a look. All right, so that's the battery there in between the scupper posts. And I have a very lightly wound bungee holding that to the scupper post, which does a really great job. It keeps it centered and I have no problems with it moving around. I know even if I tip this thing upside down and back, that battery is staying where I need it to be. So that worked out pretty cool. If I'm not using the fish finder, I just take the cables and shove them back into the hull, and I leave that little mount there at all times, which again is just a couple screws. There's 3 screws that would normally hold this. I just put 2 nuts and 2 lock washers behind. You can take off this track, which I did. Probably don't need to show you that, but take off this track, get a couple nuts behind these 2 screws and tighten it up. Put this wherever you want and screw the H-track back down into the hull. Okay, to get the transducer mount installed, I went to the plumbing store, picked up some PEC-to-PEC repair kit. I'll show you that in some separate pictures. This was done 3 years ago and it's pretty well in there and it's difficult to get out. But I ran the cable into the sidewall of the back of the seat. Again, just threw another grommet in there. It always takes a little putzing around to get the drill size and everything right, but looks nice and, you know, fairly watertight to some degree. All right, here's the bottom of the boat. I've got a little transducer hooked up and it is flush with the center keel. So if I hit bottom, as long as it's not rocky, I don't have to worry about damaging the transducer. Had it for 3 years this way and it's done a pretty good job. I will send some pictures of what I did in 2020 to get this all set up. But essentially I used that center flange of the pre-R series models. The R series models have a straight hole through it, but you can see in there each scupper has a seam in which I was able to get a nut and bolt combination with the nylon plastic type fittings. And there I don't have to worry about rust or anything, and it's done a pretty good job so far. So hopefully those are a few ideas for you if you're looking to add a fish finder. There's a lot of options out there, but so far these have worked pretty good for me. Again, this is Dan from Have Kayaking. Thanks for joining us. If you like what you see, please subscribe. Thanks. See you out on the water.